They say Hollywood is where dreams come true, but for Veronica Lake, it became a living nightmare. Once one of the biggest stars of the 1940s, she was a silver screen goddess, gracing movie posters, inspiring fashion trends, and capturing hearts. But what the world didn't see was the dark reality lurking behind her beauty. Her career was built on a lie. Her personal life was a battlefield, and the very industry that made her famous tore her apart. From Hollywood royalty to complete obscurity, Veronica Lake's life was a devastating spiral of fame, betrayal, and self-destruction. And by the end of it all, she would be unrecognizable. A childhood stained by tragedy. Before she was Veronica Lake, she was Constance Frances Marie Ockelman, a Brooklyn girl born into a strict working-class family in 1922. Her father, Harry Ockelman, worked for an oil company, and though their life was modest, it was stable. But in 1932, everything changed. A catastrophic industrial explosion killed Harry instantly, leaving Connie and her mother to fend for themselves. Her mother, Connie Ockelman, wasted no time remarrying, but something in her had changed. She saw an opportunity, a daughter she could turn into a star. Constance didn't want fame, but her mother? She was relentless. By the time she was 16, her life wasn't her own anymore. Most young actresses dream of stardom, but Veronica Lake was forced into it. Her mother dragged her to Hollywood, convinced that she could mold her into the next big thing. But early on, no one cared. She auditioned, she waited, she hoped, and nothing happened. Then, in 1940, her big break finally came. Producer Arthur Hornblow Jr. spotted her during a screen test and was immediately captivated. She had a cold, untouchable beauty, but something was off. Her name, Constance Ockelman, was forgettable. Hornblow rebranded her. She wasn't Constance anymore. She was Veronica Lake, named for her deep, blue, emotionless eyes. And just like that, Hollywood had its newest star. Sometimes the biggest moments in Hollywood happen by accident. Veronica Lake's rise to stardom wasn't just about her acting talent. It was the result of a completely unplanned moment on set that changed everything. In 1941, she landed a major role in the aviation drama I Wanted Wings, starring William Holden. It was a big-budget production, and though she wasn't the lead, she had a part that could finally put her in front of the right audience. Veronica had already been rebranded, with Hollywood executives crafting her cold, mysterious persona. But what happened next turned her into more than just another blonde bombshell. During one of her scenes, something unusual kept happening. Her long, silky blonde hair repeatedly fell over one eye, creating a seductive, almost secretive effect. It wasn't intentional. In fact, Veronica assumed she was ruining the take and worried she'd get reprimanded for not fixing it. But the moment director Arthur Hornblow Jr. saw it, he knew they had struck gold. That one simple detail, a strand of hair covering part of her face, gave her an instant trademark. Hornblow told her to keep doing it, and the peekaboo hairstyle was born. It was different, it was alluring, and it gave Veronica a unique identity in an era where actresses often blurred together. The effect was magnetic. The hairstyle quickly became a national sensation. Women across America rushed to salons, demanding the peekaboo cut, and magazines ran articles teaching readers how to recreate it. Veronica Lake wasn't just a star, she was now a trendsetter. Men were captivated by her mystique, while women admired her effortless glamour. Even today, elements of her style remain iconic, inspiring animated characters like Jessica Rabbit. But while the world was falling in love with Veronica Lake, behind the scenes, she was struggling. She had never intended to be a Hollywood sex symbol, and now, with the industry crafting an image for her that she couldn't control, she felt trapped. She was playing a role in front of the cameras, but deep down, she was growing more and more detached from the very thing that made her famous. And as much as Hollywood loved to build her up, it would soon be just as eager to tear her down. Being famous wasn't enough, because Veronica Lake didn't care about being a star. She had zero interest in playing Hollywood's game. She was difficult, unpredictable, and completely unreliable on set. She showed up late, ignored call times, and had an attitude that frustrated directors. Her co-stars hated working with her. She was sharp-tongued, emotionally distant, and saw no reason to charm anyone. Then came Sullivan's Travels, 1941. It was a career-making film, a chance to prove herself as a serious actress. But on day one of filming, she walked onto set hiding a massive secret. She was 6 months pregnant. Director Preston Sturges exploded in rage. His leading lady had lied to him, and he wanted her fired. But Hollywood couldn't afford to lose Veronica Lake. They covered it up, but her career took a hit. If Hollywood thought Veronica Lake was difficult at work, her personal life was even worse. At 18, she rushed into marriage with John Detley, an art director 14 years older than her. The relationship was doomed from the start. While Detley was settling down, Veronica was spiraling. She started drinking heavily, partying late into the night, and cheating openly with Hollywood's most powerful men, Howard Hughes, Aristotle Onassis, and even Marlon Brando. Then, in 1943, tragedy struck. She lost her second child, a premature baby boy who died shortly after birth. Her marriage collapsed, and her downward spiral began. The rapid fall from grace. At the height of her career, Veronica Lake was one of the most talked-about actresses in Hollywood. She had a signature look, a list of successful films, and a reputation as one of the most beautiful women in the industry. But Hollywood is a brutal machine. It lifts people up only to discard them when they no longer serve a purpose. By 1944, Veronica's career had already begun to crack. The qualities that made her unique, her cool detachment, her enigmatic beauty, her distant allure, had started to work against her. The industry was shifting, and audiences wanted something new. The mysterious Ice Queen act that had once mesmerized the public now made her seem stiff and lifeless on screen. The final nail in the coffin came with The Hour Before Dawn, a 1944 war drama where she played a Nazi spy. It was an ambitious role, one that required her to stretch beyond her usual performances. But there was a major problem. Her German accent was, quite simply, awful. Audiences laughed in theaters, completely pulling them out of the film. Instead of proving her versatility, the performance made her a joke. Critics tore her apart. The film flopped, and for the first time it became clear that Veronica Lake's star power was fading. People weren't rushing to theaters to see her anymore. But the worst humiliation came from Raymond Chandler, the celebrated writer behind The Blue Dahlia. He despised Veronica from the moment they started working together. He thought she was talentless, dismissing her as little more than a pretty face. He didn't hold back his opinion either. Chandler publicly insulted her acting, calling her performance vapid and accusing her of coasting on her looks rather than talent. But his most infamous insult was the nickname he gave her, Veronica Lake. It was cruel, and it stuck. Hollywood was already beginning to turn its back on her, and now she had become a punchline. Veronica, once celebrated as the find of 1941, was now seen as difficult to work with. A fading star with a bad attitude and diminishing box office returns. And in Hollywood, once the audience loses interest, studios don't waste time moving on to the next big thing. She was still in her 20s, but her career was already in free fall. The offers slowed, the scripts became weaker, and her name was no longer enough to guarantee ticket sales. The same industry that had built her up was now looking for an excuse to cast her aside. And as her career crumbled, so did Veronica Lake. Her self-destructive habits, which had always been present, started to take over completely. She turned to alcohol more frequently, isolating herself even further. Her days as a leading lady were numbered, and soon she would have more in common with the struggling actresses trying to break into Hollywood than with the elite stars she had once shared the screen with. The fall was rapid, but the worst was still to come. By 1952, Veronica Lake's life had completely unraveled. The once glamorous starlet, who had commanded the silver screen just a decade earlier, was now facing financial ruin, a failing career, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. Years of bad decisions had caught up with her, but nothing hit harder than what happened next. The IRS came knocking. She owed a fortune in unpaid taxes, and the government wasn't about to let it slide. Her family home was seized, leaving her effectively homeless. The fall from grace was swift and brutal. One moment she was a household name, and the next she was struggling just to keep a roof over her head. With nowhere to turn, Veronica had a complete nervous breakdown. She was exhausted, bitter, and angry at Hollywood, at her failed marriages, and at herself. In a shocking move, she abandoned everything. She left behind her career, her husband, and even her own children, disappearing without a trace. Using her pilot's license, she boarded a plane alone and flew from Los Angeles to New York. No clear plan, no safety net, just a desperate escape from the life that had become unbearable. The Veronica Lake the world once knew was gone. For the next decade, she would live in complete obscurity. No more red carpets, no flashing cameras, just a former star trying to survive in a world that had long forgotten her name. For nearly a decade, Veronica Lake had completely vanished. Hollywood had moved on, and most people assumed she was just another forgotten actress whose time had passed. No one knew where she was or what had happened to her. Then, in 1962, a journalist from the New York Post received a tip that would shock the world. Someone had spotted Veronica Lake, not on a movie set, not at a Hollywood event, but working as a cocktail waitress in a rundown hotel in Manhattan. The once glamorous starlet, who had graced the covers of magazines and inspired an entire generation of women, was now serving drinks to strangers under a fake name. The hotel was the Martha Washington Hotel, a residence primarily for women. She wasn't just working there, she was living there, surviving on the few dollars she made from her bartending job. When the journalist arrived and found her behind the bar, they could hardly believe their eyes. This was Veronica Lake, the icy blonde bombshell who had once captivated audiences worldwide? Her response to being found was pure Veronica, cold, detached, and indifferent. She insisted she was happier living this way, away from the pressures of Hollywood. She had no regrets, she claimed. She wasn't hiding. She simply didn't care. But the news spread fast. The public was stunned, and her old fans, feeling a mix of nostalgia and pity, began sending her money, unsolicited checks, cash, anything to help her get back on her feet. She refused most of it, though she did hold on to one check as a strange reminder of her past. A $1,000 check sent by none other than Marlon Brando, one of her former lovers. Instead of cashing it, she framed it and kept it as a memento of her old life. Despite insisting that she was content with her new life, something inside Veronica shifted after the discovery. The attention, the recognition, it awakened something in her, a pull she had spent years trying to escape. Within months, she made a decision that no one expected. She was going to try one last comeback. She started accepting small roles on television, giving interviews, and even writing an autobiography titled Veronica, 1971. But the truth was, Hollywood had long since moved on. The comeback wasn't what she had hoped. And worse, she was no longer the same Veronica Lake the world had once adored. Years of alcohol abuse had ravaged her appearance, and when the press saw her again, the reactions were brutal. One reporter cruelly noted that she looked more like a cleaning lady than a movie star. The woman who had once set beauty standards was now barely recognizable. Still, Veronica pressed on, but deep down, She must have known the truth. There was no coming back from this. In 1973, while promoting her autobiography, Veronica fell gravely ill. Doctors confirmed the worst. Her liver was failing. Years of alcoholism had finally caught up to her. On July 7, 1973, Veronica Lake died at just 50 years old. A forgotten icon, a cautionary tale. Her own words said it best. "You could put all the talent I had into your left eye and still not suffer from impaired vision." Veronica Lake's story is one of Hollywood's greatest tragedies. A meteoric rise to fame followed by a devastating downfall. She had the looks, the talent, and the charm to become a lasting legend. But in the end, she became a cautionary tale of how ruthless the entertainment industry can be. But what do you think? Was Veronica Lake unfairly cast aside by Hollywood, or did she contribute to her own downfall? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on her story. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood's forgotten icons, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. We bring you the untold stories of Hollywood's brightest stars and the dark truths behind their fame. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.